All right, welcome back to the world's #1 pro wrestling broadcast.
Numero uno.
And Long Island.
Yeah.
Still trying to get used to the world thing, dude.
Are you used to it yet?
No.
Struggling?
I'm not. I am struggling still.
Okay.
More struggling in the heat in this friggin' studio. I'm friggin' sweating like a stuck pig. Hey, are you a sweater? And I don't mean the one you wear.
No, not really. I'm a little too small.
Look at you.
But I turn on the AC.
Wait a minute, wait.
Small to
What does
sweat?
that mean?
Not in the height, but in like.
What? So if you're fat like me, you sweat? Is
No,
what
no,
you're trying
no,
to say
no, no.
politely.
Listen.
Man, oh man, Abe.
I'm just trying to say I'm a little scrawny.
But what does that have to do with sweating?
It's got
Scrawny people sweat.
There's not a lot of things. You know, I'm not really.
There's not a lot of things.
Listen,
Abe, very descriptive.
I feel like I'm getting grilled here.
A little bit. All right, now you're starting to sweat. You see that?
Yeah, now I'm
starting to
sweating.
Not this part of the script, but I meant to ask you: have you ever switched deodorants?
Sure. Hasn't everybody?
So, have you
Evening of armpit.
No, but I'm just saying.
Then I switched over to Essence of Shit.
Have you ever
go ahead.
tried
Yeah.
like to use a different type and then it doesn't work and
Yeah.
you can smell your underarms?
Absolutely.
Isn't that there's nothing worse
So
than smelly
worse when
underarm, dude.
you're at a party and you
Oh.
realize
Well, I
that
don't
the
know if I was
new
at a party,
that the
but-
new brand is a complete failure.
Well, because at some point it was like
What
you
are
were
we
hearing there's
talking
like this
about?
metal inside
Yeah.
the underarm stuff, right?
Ooh.
And it
What?
causes cancer.
Oh,
So I was
great.
starting to try to use the all natural underarm roll.
organic deodorant.
Well, it's like
Did you get
man-made.
it at cheap John's or
Yeah,
something?
like one of those.
Trader
yeah,
Joe's.
Trader Joe's. Yeah.
Nice, very good.
And you pay a pretty hefty penny for it.
of course,
too.
because it's organic.
But it doesn't work.
Of course not. It's organic.
And so, the one thing I did learn from wrestling, Abe, you should learn this.
Yeah.
And this is true.
Yeah.
If I learned anything from pro wrestling,
It's scripted.
no, it's shave your armpits. You keep yourself clean and less smelly.
You
Learn
know-
that from Captain Lou Albano.
You know who I learned that from?
Who?
Dad.
He
When
said
the
shave your armpits?
When the summertime would come, I'd be like, Dad, why are you shaving your armpits? He goes, it makes perfect sense because this is when you sweat the most. So he used to
He's
shave
right.
his armpits. He's
He's
pretty,
right.
he's a pretty intelligent fella there.
Want to do a quick roll call? A mess in the house. Jay
Mess.
and Will in the house.
What's up,
Good
Jay?
information last show, Jay. Thank you.
Yes.
Jason, good to see you.
what's happening?
RJ Hudson, how are
RJ,
you?
hey.
Loose is here.
Cannon.
Wow, we're a little light tonight.
All right.
And not because I think a lot of people might be battling the Jets because the Jets are on, right?
I know. That's all right.
Does that hurt you?
No, because Zach is playing. If it was Aaron, do you think we'd have like a little phone right here so we could look underneath and see each pass? What do you think?
Nah, I don't know. Nah,
Yeah,
can't
are
do
you-
it.
you're
We
not
did
that-
a show when
you're not that
Spidey was
enamored
here
with
last
Aaron?
year. Remember, he put the game on while we couldn't even concentrate during
No,
the show.
we couldn't.
Yeah, I can't do that.
Are you enamored with Aaron being here? No. If I can quickly ask, why? Are you just so jaded over the years? Which I understand.
Your partner, Bart Griggs,
Yeah, Captain Optimist.
right?
I'll give it to him.
Along with you.
Not really. Believe it
So-
or not, I'm really not too good at it.
I don't know if he told you, but we do have a bet.
Do you guys bet? What did you bet?
It's
He didn't tell me.
It's a real steak dinner.
Okay.
And you're invited no matter who wins.
Oh, wow. All right. Okay, that's cool.
Loser has to pay.
Okay.
So the bet is this.
What is the bet?
It's a three-way bet.
Three-way bet.
Okay.
All right.
The first bet is, will the Jets make the playoffs?
I think they will.
Okay. He chose they will.
Yeah.
I chose they wouldn't.
Oh, my God, Mike.
Okay.
You don't even think they're going to make the
No,
playoffs?
they're not. They're not gonna make
What
the
is
playoffs.
Rodgers getting killed in the first game?
Look, no.
I'm worried about the
I'll explain
line,
it to you.
but all right, go ahead.
So you have to just win 2 or 3, right? You just have to win.
Right.
So there's a way you could they could make the playoffs, but I could still win.
That I see, but if
bets.
they don't make the playoffs, you clean up right off
Well,
the bat.
it's only one bet.
Okay,
because
what's
three
phase
bets.
2? What's the...
Is the record. So I believe Bart went 11-7.
Well, it's got to be 11-6 because it's a 17-game season.
He went 11-6.
Okay, that's reasonable.
I
All right.
went 9-8.
Oh my God, 9-8 with
9-8.
Aaron Rodgers would be
Yep.
an absolute disaster. If they missed the playoffs, it would be the absolute
He
disaster.
chose them to take first place.
I don't know if
in
11
the
wins.
AFC East.
I don't know if 11 wins get you first place.
I
don't think it does.
said they'll finish third.
Behind Miami and Buffalo?
I'm picking Miami to win the AFC East this year.
Tua's going to stay healthy all year?
That
No
team-
concussions?
That team is in great. That team is a beast. Listen, I think the Jets are going to be. Listen, they're a great team. But there's too much. It's too much going on.
Interesting.
Listen, they make it. I'm happy.
Right.
They don't. I get a steak dinner. Right.
Okay.
Win-win.
All right.
I want to get to our guest because I'm very excited.
Absolutely.
But first things first. Hannibal.
Yeah.
Podcaster. announced a week ago that he tried to take his own life. And on the video, he showed where he cut his throat and cut his stomach. When they brought him to the hospital, they didn't think he was going to make it, but he survived. Now, we all know that Hannibal and us do not get along very well.
When did this happen?
He said it was like 3 weeks ago before the video, so I'd say a month ago.
Is it okay if I make absolutely zero jokes about this?
Go ahead.
That's not cool,
No,
man.
you shouldn't.
Hannibal,
by the way,
what's wrong with
Jason,
you, bro, what are you doing, man?
Jason Moore, the Jets are ahead 13-0 over Cleveland.
Zach Wilson should be the starter.
Davio's going Dolphins to win AFC. Mitch Seinfeld in the house. How are you, Mitch?
Hey, what's up, Mitch? How's it going,
Hannibal,
brother?
Don't let me knock you off.
No, I'm just saying. I mean, there's nothing to even kid around with this. I think that's terrible. I don't know what's wrong with him. We have suspected that he's got some mental, struggles. There's nothing funny about this. Hannibal, all kidding aside, no one wants you to hurt yourself, bro. What are you doing, man? Reevaluate. You've done some pretty cool things, man. I mean, all kidding aside, take care of yourself. I have nothing to. I don't like hearing it. Yeah. I don't like hearing it. It's very bothersome.
Yeah, you know what? You're right. You don't want to hear that type of stuff.
I think that's bad.
But doesn't mean we like the guy.
No, of course not.
Right.
Of course not. But
I want to make that clear, though. I don't,
No, I have no use for him as a person. But what is that? I don't want to see the guy hurt himself like that. What are you doing? It's bad, dude. I mean, what did you think when you saw it? I mean, you must have been like, what the?
I thought, oh, look, Hannibal's trying to get more views.
Do you think he's working us on something like this?
No, he tried to kill him. You could see the cuts.
What is wrong with him?
You know what I thought to myself?
What drives him to do that?
You know what I thought to myself? Someone should have got you mental health
a long time ago.
Because just like you said, this is saying this respectfully.
Yes.
You knew something was wrong with that guy.
I could
There's
see
something missing. There.
He's got anger and depression issues, and I don't know what to tell him other than get some help. Just get some help.
Jason says, I hope Hannibal doesn't try it again. I do too.
Oh, and that's no way to get views.
No, that was an attempt of a stupid joke, really.
I thought it was pretty funny for a stupid joke.
I appreciate it, but
okay.
It wasn't the nicest.
Yeah, but come on, Hannibal. Please, take care of yourself and get some advice from those who care.
The one thing I thought was kind of moving, he said that when he was in a hospital, he realized he did the wrong thing because he was going to take care of his dog, Piper. He has that little dog that he carries to the videos. I always find that very cute.
Yeah,
right?
Cute dog.
It's nice that, I'm
always think about Piper then the next time
But I'll
happens.
be honest with you, and I'm not trying to be funny here.
Yeah.
There's some points I'm concerned. Hannibal goes over the edge like he has.
Piper safe? Is that what you're getting
That's what I'm thinking.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Seriously,
you have a valid point.
I'm being honest.
That's a valid point.
Yeah.
Because if that was a child, the child would be removed from the house.
Well, he absolutely,
right?
Absolutely. And we all know what he did to his girlfriend Blaze, right?
Yeah, we
I'm
do.
Just saying.
And we know what he did to a random referee because he was mad.
No, not according to him. He said it was rigged.
Oh, really?
Just telling you.
Okay, I got you.
I don't know. What are you gonna
Hannibal, reevaluate, brother. No good. Come on, man.
Jimmy?
Yeah.
I gotta tell you something, man.
What do you got to tell me?
Your sister from California keeps calling me.
I'm adopted. I don't have a sister.
Your sister that I know you don't get along with keeps calling me from
How can
California.
I get along with a sister I don't even have? What are you talking? Wait a minute. Maybe I do have a sister. Hey, you got a picture?
Listen, she goes by the.
What does she look like?
She's right up there. Jenny Pharaoh.
Wow, my sister looks
Your
pretty
sister
hot.
Don't do that.
I'm adopted. I don't have a sister.
So Jenny's been reaching out.
Okay.
And she's been
to you?
Because she's been trying to reach you, and you're
well,
not.
I'm not answering. I don't even answer the phone for you.
So
Why would I answer the phone for her?
She wants to talk to you.
I'm not.
She wants to come back to New York.
New York?
She might want to guest host once in a while on the show.
Guest
I don't know.
host?
That's what she's asking.
Really? Really?
I'm just telling you.
Yeah, I got a pyramid to smack over her head. Yeah, really.
Just try.
Now, hold on a second. There's only been 6 female pharaohs in the history of Egypt, and somehow one of them is my sister. You creative.
Jenny.
You are very
Jenny
creative.
Pharaoh.
Jenny Pharaoh.
Jenny Pharaoh.
Well, you know what? Jenny, who can I turn to? I mean, I couldn't turn to Jenny.
867-5309.
The number's disconnected. I tried
it. No, you didn't. That's what you say. Give her a call.
What am I going to call her? Hi, sis?
Hey, babe. It's been a while. How's California?
Now, I remember way back in some other alternative universe, there was some sort of queen that sat in a chair, and it was the worst thing I ever seen.
No, on the serious
So
note,
this one better have my genetics.
Do you remember when we were in junior high?
Because One of a kind.
You remember when we were in
Anyway.
junior high
Yeah.
and in your backyard and your sister always just come out and try to play with us all the time?
That was my brother,
No,
and
it
he
was
looked
your
nothing
sister.
like a female.
It was your sister. I remember when she went in the...
He looked like
the pool.
Samoa Joe.
She was... Dude,
What?
that time we were in your pool and she came in that bikini. Oh,
Well,
my God.
you would remember that.
I was like Jenny Farrell.
I told you my sister's kind of hot,
I
and
told
you
you.
have a problem with that?
Because your sister... I'm trying
Wait
to
a
talk
second,
my
you
sister.
disappeared. You went to the bathroom for like half an
No,
hour.
I did not touch
Yes,
your
you-
sister. I did not.
I didn't say you went
I
in
did
there
not.
with her. I
Okay.
said you disappeared into the bathroom.
No, I am not
heard
with your sister.
squeak, squeak,
Don't.
squeak.
Your sister I find very nice. She's a nice
Well, I'm
lady.
sure you do.
She's a nice lady.
You probably like her more than me, but let's not get into that.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
she's
Go
all
ahead.
right.
Okay, all right.
saying.
So what do you think? What are the prospects? Is she on next week? Can I go bowling with
She's
Marty?
in California right
Oh,
now.
all right.
She's going to try to come visit.
It's very interesting. All right.
August 8th, which is Tuesday, 10 p.m. We have a live watch along, a Dark Side of the Ring finale.
If
with
my
Marty
phone works,
Jannetty.
we have a watch. I think I should be with you for this one.
We'll
Can I
test it.
physically just be next to you for this one?
We'll see. We'll
Is that
try
possible?
to work. Yeah, it is possible.
Thank you.
August 9th, special Wednesday. Very excited.
This
The
is-
great Todd Gordon.
How did you pull
at
that
7
off?
p.m. Todd's a big fan of the show.
love Todd. is
Big fan of the show.
God.
In fact, he was naming.
Love Todd
He was
Gordon.
naming interviews, and he says he hopes he could top this. He hopes he could top that. And I said, Todd, you'll
From
be
our
on.
library?
Of course.
Wow, Mr. Gordon,
God.
you're the man.
Todd is God.
Oh, he is. That's fantastic.
August 10th at 7:45. That's
Sal's
the
coming.
Thursday. Sal Corrente coming back.
Sal's coming
at
back.
7:45.
Great. Yo,
and
this
then
is a
right
hell of
after
a
that,
lineup
on
you
the
got,
main
though.
show next Thursday, we've got Barry Horowitz returning.
That's
we got a
incredible.
lot going on. September 15th in studio. Manny Fernandez to return.
Dude,
We got a lot to talk
do
to
you
Manny about.
sleep? You're working
There's
it.
more coming.
You are working it.
Barry Windham back on September 17th at 11 a.m.
Awesome.
September 29th, PN News.
Very cool.
Best friends with
Michael. Yeah,
Mantor.
Mantor, yeah.
Coming in studio all the way from Europe, guys. So be there for that show.
That's awesome.
September 29th, Duke the Dumpster Trophy at 7 p.m.
Dude, the dumpster Drazi. I can't believe it.
Is it
how-
Drazi or Drosy?
Yeah, Droese or
right.
something like. But didn't Duke wasn't Duke trying to get on years ago?
Yes.
That's pretty cool. Awesome.
And
Here's one I like.
Well, hold on. Also, that same day, we've got TJ Hopper coming in. I just haven't put it on yet.
Okay.
I'm trying to see what the schedule is. And then we got Doink the Clown returning. Just Doink, though, not the other guy.
mean Ray?
Doink.
Ray.
Right.
Nice. Ray's cool.
Well, it ain't friggin' Matt Bourne.
No, obviously not. So how many doinks were there though? Wasn't there?
Your friend Steve Kern was.
My friend Steve Kern. How you doing there, Steve? How's your corn kernels doing? Are they passing by? Just passing by.
Paul London in studio.
Very cool. Very excited about that one. I want some Brian Kendrick while we're at it, but then,
We'll try.
we'll go with
We want to
Paul
thank the
London.
band that sings the theme song for Monte The Pharaoh and Jimmy Farrow, along with his partner Mark Griggs. Wake up the band, Wisteria Hall. Wisteria Hall sing such great songs as In My Dreams, This Life, Not Far Behind, and the theme song for the Monte The Pharaoh, Riding High.
Very nice, very nice.
Monte The Pharaoh can be seen on the Monte The Pharaoh YouTube page, where you...
Like and subscribe, and then of course you switch on over to the Monte and the Pharaoh YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, and become a member.
Go on the Monte the Pharaoh Facebook Live page. Hear us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor. Catch us on the Monte and the Pharaoh Twitch TV page. And if you're lucky enough to live in New York, you can catch us on Channel 115 every Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. and Saturday at 11:30 a.m. and Channel 20 Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Where over 150,000 people watch us weekly,
What's up with
where
the
they
cable
will
contract?
catch this one.
What's up with the cable contract?
Cable contract is up August 14th. So this is a very tough time for me, a season, because it's a lot of negotiating, a lot of problems. So
I got
it's
you.
like,
It happens every year.
it's a
I
real
got you.
headache.
All right.
And also, reminding everybody, we are on the Intuitive Network. Jimmy, what's Intuitive?
That is spelled INTIVE. Intuitive. Get into it. It's got shows, it's got documentaries, it's got the flagship program, Monte and the Pharaoh, and it's just adding more and more content as the weeks go by.
It's a free app, dude.
It's free.
You can't
Download
beat free.
that.
You can't beat
Fantastic.
free.
It's fantastic.
My God.
You can't.
We'll be back with what we're calling the unsung heroes that made the stars. We have David Isley, who I'm very excited to speak with.
Yes, sir.
And Tommy Angel, but Tommy's having trouble, so it might be
Right.
David alone. What?
Tommy's here.
Tommy's in.
All right.
Beautiful.
Tommy is here.
I am very excited for these two gentlemen, the unsung heroes who made the stars, Jimmy.
We shall return in one moment. Hang in.
Sweet Caroline.
Manscaped.
Uh-huh.
You know, have you tried the new equipment that's been sent?
I'm afraid because it says weed whacker. I'm scared.
Maven, Manscaped. What are you thinking about
Love it.
Manscaped, dude?
Love it.
What do you use it for?
Necessity. What don't I use it for? Put it this way. The only hair I have on my entire body is these eyebrows.
Yeah.
That you see. These caterpillars racing to the middle of my nose. That's it.
That is it.
That's all I have. And that's all I want.
That's the
So Manscaped is a must.
We were talking before the show. There's nothing worse than just hair.
Yeah.
Right? Hair on a woman, hair on a man. It's just bad.
Absolutely. And it's the one thing that the older I get, it starts growing more in unwanted areas.
Absolutely.
I hate it.
I'm going to ask you a question.
Uh-oh.
Just going to go out there.
Oh, boy.
Go for it.
You're doing a deed.
Yes.
Again, I don't want you to have to admit this because we, as men, we try not to admit this. But if you're going to go do the deed on a woman, would you rather have her be hairless or a little hair, racing stripe, or
racing stripe,
full retro bush?
Racing stripe.
Retro bush is out.
Yes, thank you.
Retro bush is out.
Yeah.
I don't mind a small, well manicured landing strip. Every now and then, if it's completely, and I'm talking like baby's ass bald, then I start. Where is that pedophilia line? I don't want to wander into that.
That's very
Thought of it like
interesting.
that.
I never thought about that. You're a smart dude. Holy shit.
So if the landing strip is clean enough for the plane to go in smoothly, you're cool with that?
If the landing strip has, like I said, well manicured, you can see both sides. It's not
Like blinking lights on both sides of that
I
landing?
just don't. I don't want. I don't want the shrubbery going off into unwanted areas on that as well.
Gotcha. Oh, look what you found. Ooh.
I got to be all honest though. Hey, the older I get though, I don't think I can be as
I found
Have
it!
you ever gone down there and she slowly brings down the underwear? Then
What is
retro? Just,
Absolutely.
You're like, whoa!
Wow,
Yeah, I'm
like
46,
it
of
pops
course.
out?
Do you like walk out or what do you do?
No, I muster through. I muster up the courage to get
finish
He's
through.
a trooper. Yeah. He's a trooper. Gotta give him an A.
Not all heroes wear capes.
Yeah,
There you go.
I hear you.
There you
Listen,
go.
I couldn't
Bush.
say. I couldn't say. Well, if you have the same beliefs as Maven, does Manscaped could help you?
Absolutely.
The weed whacker.
Absolutely.
What are you thinking?
I'm thinking that I may have to, go in a room, close the door, and hang out with the weed whacker for a little while.
Yeah, I think you're a retro guy, aren't you?
I like 70s adult films, if that's what you're getting at.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
But
only
with that,
Ron
we're going to take a
Jeremy,
quick
Batman.
commercial break, and we'll be
Anyway.
back with this wrestling icon, Maven.
We will see you in a drop kick second.
Drop kick. All right, welcome back to Long Island's #1 pro wrestler and broadcast, Monte The Pharaoh. We have our special guest, David Isley and Tommy Angel. How are you, sir?
What's up, guys?
Thanks
Hey
for
there.
joining us.
Hey there, hey there.
Hey there, hey there.
What's going on, gentlemen?
Hey, guys, for our newer fans, can you tell our fans about you guys and how you got into pro wrestling?
Take it away, Tommy. You hit it first.
Tommy, I can't hear you, brother.
Uh-oh, we lost Tommy.
We see him, but we can't hear him. David, how about you while he's working on that?
Yeah, great. I started watching wrestling back in 1975. And I'm kind of dating my age now. And at that particular time, you had, down here in the Mid-Atlantic area, you had your Blackjack Mulligans, your Wahoo McDaniels, your young Ric Flairs, your young Dino Bravos, Tim Woods. I continued to watch that on a daily basis or a weekly basis when I could. It came on Saturdays. And when I started getting into wrestling after I fell in love with it, I started working for Ricky Steamboat at his gym, Mid-Atlantic gym in Charlotte, and that was 1984. So I started working for Ricky, and the guys were coming in and out of the gym to work out. I became great friends with Hector Guerrero and downtown Denny Brown, former NWA junior champion. You mentioned Barry Horowitz a few minutes ago. He was in there working out at the time as Bret Hart. I remember Pez Watley coming through there, Scott Hall coming through there and Spivey as the Starship. And then I got introduced by Gene Ligon, where I lived over in Concord, North Carolina, a subdivision kind of like outside of Charlotte. And Nelson Royal was coming over there to work out. So Nelson had told us, or Gene had told myself, who I ended up tagging with later on down the road, that Nelson was going to be starting a wrestling school, his first wrestling school. Jim Crockett was looking to break in some guys. He needed some guys to come in and start working on some spot shows and some TV shows occasionally. And one thing just kind of led to another, and that's kind of how I started working with Jim Crockett Promotions.
Being old school fans, we obviously know the name Nelson Royal, but some of the newer fans who watch our program may not.
Yeah.
Can you fill us in on Nelson Royal and what it was like working with him?
And here's the thing, we were trained by Nelson Royal and Gene Anderson. Those two guys were synonymous back then, in the territory days. The Andersons just had so much heat back when I was growing up. And with Nelson Royal, perfect. There's a great picture of Nelly right there. Nelson had a ranch up in Mooresville, North Carolina. Nelson trained us the old school way. I doubt very seriously they trained the guys now. How they trained us back then. I remember, running through a cornfield, just running laps around that cornfield for the tryout that day. And he just, they were wanting us to quit, which we didn't. We had a lot of guys, coming through that camp, out of Nelson's first camp. Some guys that, like myself, Tommy, Ricky Nelson, John Savage, who was the Barbarian's brother, Jammin' Mitch Snow, who came through there. Todd Champion, Curtis Thompson, and a couple of names that you may be familiar with is Ken Shamrock and John Laurinaitis.
Oh, sure. Tommy, how's your audio? You with us, brother?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. Well done.
Yes, we can. Tommy, why don't you tell us about your beginnings with wrestling?
My apologies for the technical difficulties.
That's okay.
Operator error, probably. I'm a subscriber and also a member of Monte The Pharaoh. I love you guys.
Check that
Oh,
out.
thank you, sir.
Check
Thank you so
that
much.
out.
Very kind
Thank
of you.
you, sir.
Very kind of you.
Take us to the beginning, Tommy. What made you get into wrestling, and how did it start for you?
I was in the military, the 82nd Airborne at Fort Bragg, and I came to the end of my 4 years in 1985. I had a choice to re-enlist. I wanted to be a helicopter pilot. I was going to go into warrant officer school, but also I was working out with a bunch of knotheads or powerlifters in local gym, and I was like, wrestling seems pretty cool. I'll probably get more chicks. So I ETS'd out of the military, and about within a year, the same person that got Dave into the business, we used to go down to Fayetteville, Cumberland County Arena when the NWA came by, and Gene Ligon was there. We talked to him and Don Cornuto and said, dude, how do we get in the business? We're like, you don't want to get in the business. You don't understand. It's like, no, I really do. And Gene told us Nelson Royal's getting ready to open up a camp in Mooresville. I had no idea who it was. I only watched a little bit of wrestling as a teenager. I knew Hulk Hogan. So I followed up with a call, and we set up a tryout with Gene and Nelson at the ranch that Dave spoke about in Mooresville. And it was the Italian Stallion was there and a couple other guys there to work out with us and try to discourage us from going. We had to pay like $350. We're doing wind sprints up and down the hill. We had to carry a guy around our back in a cornfield. I was like, it was easy for me. I just got out of the military. I was in the best shape of my life.
Right.
But we went through all that for about 2 or 3 hours. And then we had to get in the ring, and Stallion was trying to shoot on me, and I was just cock strong, steroided up. He couldn't pin me. He was getting pissed off. And so basically they told us after that, you guys on this side line up over here, you guys have made our school. It's a camp. It's going to be 4 months long. Here's the deal. They didn't smarten us up till about the last week. They told us that, it's all a work. But what had happened, Jim Crockett Promotions realized their television ratings were not where they needed to be at that time, because back then the top guys came out and squashed job guys, and there was no interest in following the television programming. So they wanted to get a group of young talent that was more competitive for the shows, and that was us. We were the first class, David and I and a bunch of guys, and boy, I tell you what, we worked out every weekend. I ended up moving to Mooresville, living on Nelson's ranch. We worked out all the time, and it became our lifestyle. But Nelson and Gene gave us a great perspective. Nelson, a 9-time junior heavyweight champion, it's babyface, and obviously Gene was a heel with the Minnesota Wrecking Crew, so we got both perspectives of the business. And what a wealth of young guys. And we knew our role. We went in, we were just going to put guys over. But, as our careers advanced, we can talk about more later, but the more trust we got with the top guys, the more they gave us. But boy, it was really something.
I've always wondered what makes a person become a pro wrestler. Did you guys question your decision in those early days, those training days? Like, was there a moment where you thought to yourself, what the hell did I get myself into?
I know I did not. Maybe later on down the road when I started, the aches and pains started being a little more prevalent. But gosh, no, I was some of the best times of my life, and being able to travel and see places and get to know people. No, I didn't think twice about it.
Tommy?
No, I didn't question it either. I mean, it was exciting to me. I was just out of the military, 22 years old, the world in front of me, and we all had aspirations of being top guys, being marquee names, but that didn't work out. But we loved the business, we loved the guys we worked with, and Nelson and Gene perfected our craft. We learned the psychology of the business, which I think is lost. It's how to engage an arena full of 10, 15, 20,000 people and draw them into the story, good versus evil. And you can feel those emotions going up and down, and that's intoxicating.
For sure. Tommy, first of all, I want to say thank you for your service.
Yes.
And thank you for what you've done for this country.
Yes, sir.
So I think that
I
needs to be
appreciate
said.
it. Thank you.
Speaking of that, hot subject from our show. If you watch our show, we try not to talk too much wrestling, right? We
try.
We want to know the insides of the wrestler, but
Absolutely.
I guess the question I have for you and David, Manny Fernandez, we're huge fans, and we're huge fans of what he also has done for this country. But from him being on our show, he's has recently taken, and in the past, for getting quoted as stealing valor, right? Stolen valor. I wanted you guys to weigh in, especially you, David, on your thoughts on stolen valor in wrestling, and then specifically to Manny Fernandez.
And Tommy, too, coming
And
straight
Tommy.
out of the service into the wrestling business.
Absolutely.
Okay, you're going to have to help me out here on the stolen valor.
Well, the story is that Manny, who's a well-known veteran, some folks claim that he didn't really serve at all, and he's lying.
Okay. Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I have heard that story as well.
Okay.
Quite a few times. It's like impersonating a police officer. Why in the hell would you want to do it?
Right.
That's just my thought. Manny was a hell of a worker inside the ring. Outside the ring, he could be a little hard to handle at times, especially in the bar, at certain times. But always in the ring, he was always extremely professional. Never hurt me one time. He was very solid. I knew he was there, but never hurt me one time. But again, getting back to the stolen valor, I've heard that story. I've never had a conversation with him about it. But why in the hell would you want to do it?
Manny strike you as a genuine fellow in the days you knew him? Like, what's your gut read? I know that's putting you on the spot. I'm sorry, but I mean,
right.
I felt Manny was very genuine when he was here. I didn't feel that at all. So I'm asking you.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I never had a lot of conversation with Manny too much.
Okay.
I've heard from some other people, that he could be a little shady.
Okay.
That's what I have. Was he ever shady with me? No, I never had any business dealings with him except for inside the ring when we had a match together. But I've heard the stories as well, just like I'm sure everybody else has.
Gotcha. Tommy, with your service, I'm sure that this is a fairly sensitive subject. What do you feel about it?
Absolutely. As a veteran, I'm also a disabled veteran. Is that when you sign the dotted line, you put your name out there. You're sworn to protect the Constitution of the United States of America from domestic and foreign terrorists or enemies, and we're experiencing it right now. So to someone to impersonate that, it's a desecration of all the people who have died serving this country. So I'm not very favorable for those. As far as Manny, I mean, I actually lived with him at one point, but he's been such an influence in my professional life and pro wrestling. I can't thank him enough. He'd work out with us for hours. I never had the opportunity to vet any of his background. I didn't know. I heard the stories too, but I just, I take a man at his word, but I'm not sure truth be told.
How
but,
about
you know,
the
I
lighter
respect him
side
as
of it?
as a
I'm going to call it the
wrestler.
lighter side because it's not as touchy as the Manny Fernandez subject, who will be in studio again.
Yes,
which I could,
looking
one
forward.
of the all-time
I love
greats.
Manny. Period.
How about a gentleman like Don Kernodle or Sergeant Slaughter, who went as far as to say that he was a Marine? In my belief, was just to protect his character, and he didn't realize what he was really saying. But would you guys be able to weigh in on that?
You mean on Kernodle and Slaughter?
Yeah.
You know, I guess you're insinuating that, you know, with those guys being in the service.
Well, Slaughter did say he was a Marine, and again, as being a fan, I was a huge Sergeant Slaughter fan. I kind of feel like he was trying to protect his gimmick.
Yeah, is business
Sure.
when it comes to something like that?
You know, I've only been around Slaughter, you know, a handful of times. Never really had any real in-depth conversation with him. But as far as Don Kernodle goes, I was around Don many times. Always a very stand-up human being. I loved him and his brother Rocky Kernodle. I love both those guys dearly. And as far as being class acts in and outside of the ring, you know, Don Kernodle was always a class act.
Did you keep a relationship with Don?
You know, the only time really that I ever saw Don, he lived up in Burlington, North Carolina, not too far from us. But I kept in touch with Don certainly when he came to the Fan Fest and the, you know, things of that sort that they're having up in Charlotte. I would run into Don occasionally. You know, Don ran a few little small independent shows up around the Burlington area where he was very well known, you know, with some car dealerships and that. You know, at Slaughter came in to help him out. You know, Gene Ligon and I, when I started wrestling with Gene under the Thunderfoot mask in 1991, Don started promoting a few shows here and there, and I saw Don then. But you know, it would only be after you know, probably, you know, maybe once a year that I would run into Don and Rocky.
Tommy, you come home from the military. How do you explain to your family members that you're going to be a professional wrestler?
My father was a career Marine officer, and when I told him I was getting out of the military, he said, "What are you going to do, son?" I said, "Well, I'm going to go in the world of professional wrestling." He said, "You're a dumbass." He said, "Why would you want to go?"
Were you surprised at that response? Because I'm not.
No, because he said, "Look, if you retire," I went in at age 17. I would have retired at 37, and I would have had a full benefit package. But I said, "Dad, I'm going to make millions of dollars. I'm going to have women everywhere. I'm going to drive fast cars." He said, "You're still a dumbass." So that's part of my story when I wrap up my career. But they supported me, but I just told them, you know, this is where my heart is. Because when I went in the military, I was about 200 pounds. When I got out, I was about 260.
Wow.
And they knew I was been training and working out, and you know, I wanted to grow my hair out. And obviously, God punished me for wearing a mullet.
There you go.
But
don't you hate when that happens?
God makes some perfect heads, and He covered the rest of them with hair.
There you go, brother.
There you go. Dave, how about you? Did your parents send you to a psychologist when you told them what you wanted to do?
You know, I think, as my mother would always say, this too shall pass. But
This is rough.
you know, but I stayed in it, you know, for quite a long time. You know, luckily we had some, you know, I had something else to fall back on, kind of a plan B. But, you know, again, some of the best times of my life. I mean, you know, I think I still, you know, occasionally will run into Arn Anderson, another great human being that doesn't live too far from us. And we pass messages back along, you know, here and there to each other and saying hello, you know, through various people. And, you know, just, meeting people like Double A, I mean, you know, who I can't say enough positive things about in and outside of the ring. Just those are the kind of people that made the business fun.
Since we're talking about the Andersons, I got to ask, since I got you, did you ever come across the notoriously known as one of the biggest wieners in the business, Ole?
You know, that's a great question. Yeah. You know, one of my very first matches at TV that I had down in the Atlanta WTBS studios, which was every morning, I think around 9 o'clock on Saturday morning.
A great time to have a wrestling match. Sorry to cut in like that. 9 o'clock in the morning? That's great.
9 o'clock in the morning at WTBS down on Techwood Drive in Atlanta.
Yeah.
A lot of those times, the guys would just be coming in from the bar, about that time, the top guys at that particular time. But only, where we kind of have what you would call the guerrilla position down at WTBS, it was myself and another guy who came through camp with us named Lawrence Stevens, and Ole was tagging with Arn, and he must have known that Lawrence and I were one of Gene's students, because he punched the wall, or the wall right in front of us, and said, "I'm in a shitty mood today, and I'm going to kick somebody's ass." And we got out in the ring, and when we locked up, he was just as light as a feather the whole time.
Okay.
So I'm sure he was just, kind of, just kind of pulling a rib on us.
Well, you guys obviously both worked up here in the north where we are, and down in the south. When we ask other wrestlers on their payday, we know that there's a difference.
Yeah.
How astronomical, I'm not sure. Maybe you could spell it out for me between WWF and Mid-Atlantic.
If I could just add on that,
Yeah.
right? So, again, we don't know anything, right? So, we're assuming that when he worked in the Northeast in Madison Square Garden, some of these paydays are really big. And we know when Hogan was around, that card, everybody on it was making some good money.
Oh,
Yeah.
But
money.
like Tommy Rich, who we love, for example, he'd say he'd be working the Omni. We'd be like, "Oh, what's a payday in the Omni, or what's a payday here?" And he'd say, "Oh, it was a ton of money, $5,000, $6,000. I'll ask you guys, was the money that good down south? Like, what was a typical payday for an Omni match?
Well, just
Go ahead, Tom.
for we did TV, we had we were getting Crockett, just this $150 to do television, and then Vince saw what we were doing down there in development wise, and he recruited us to go up north. Nelson called us all into camp and said, "Look, McMahon wants to use you guys. You ready to go?" And we were like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Jim Crockett may not let you guys back on TV." I said, "Who cares?" So we went up there. That's the only familiarity I had with the wrestling business was WWF.
Vince didn't give you $150, I hope.
No, he doubled, tripled that. Plus, he fed us buffets while we were there. He flew us up.
Yeah.
Per
There you
diem.
go.
So it was
Good.
like we were rock stars. We went up there and said, "You got to be kidding me."
Correct.
And the
You
first
know,
day
and
that we
I'll
walked
tell
in,
a quick story on that. Back in those days, guys taking a superplex off the top rope, they would pay us extra, which they called bump money.
Wow.
They would pay us extra for taking those types of bumps.
Get out.
Back in the day. I think, Tommy, if I remember correctly, when you got your hair cut by Beefcake, they paid you extra. So the paydays were much better working for McMahon. And I'll never forget, we were getting ready to leave. On the way out the door to head back to the airport, Bobby Heenan came running up to us. And there was about, I don't know, six of us that had been up there doing TV. He gave us $100 bill, not each, but $100 bill. He said, "Guys, thank you so much for coming up here and making our guys look awesome. I know this is not much. Take this $100 bill, split it between you, and buy a couple of beers on the way home."
Wow.
Very nice.
Yeah, that first day we went into WWF television, we're walking in, we're scared, we're excited, and Vince McMahon walked up and introduced himself. He said,
Yeah.
it was George South, me and David. And he goes, "Hey, George. Hey, Tommy. Hey, David. We're so glad you're here." And he walked away and was like, "He knows our name. That's crazy." Jim Crockett wouldn't even acknowledge that we were alive walking through the dressing room.
No, not at all.
And then I got Brutus the Barber cut my hair. I had to think about it. I was like, they wanted to cut my hair because it was so long, my mullet. And I was like, "I don't know." And they're like, "Your hair's going to grow back. The makeup artist will trim it up for you." I was like, "Okay." They gave me cash. And then 2 tapings later, the British Bulldogs, I was working them, and he suplexed me off the top rope. And I went all the way across the ring, and my feet almost hit the other corner. And they say, "Hey, kid, they want to see you in the back." I'm like, "Oh, man, they're going to fire me already." And he had a whole bunch of money. He goes, "I never seen anybody fly that high in a ring. Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Here, thank you."
Wow. That's cool.
So what do you guys think when you hear all the negative stuff about Vince? It sounds like your experience was not bad at all.
I mean, I never had anything but positive. I mean, have we heard the stories like everybody else? Absolutely. But, he was always extremely professional. That was one of the most professional operations that I had ever seen. And to Tommy's point, Jim Crockett just treated us like just like another person on the street. I mean, the boys in the back treated us very well because they all knew that. I mean, if you ask Ricky Morton would say, well, they asked him one time who was the best worker on the card, and he said, well, everybody could work back in those days, from the underneath guys to the top guys. They all could have a match. So they understood why we were there. But if you ask a guy like Arn Anderson or Ricky Morton about what we were there for, a good underneath hand, a good enhancement talent can either make you or break you on television.
Sure, absolutely.
Did you ever? You're saying everybody was really treated you well, which makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah.
Was there any top stars that really thought they're high of themselves that treated you poorly?
You mean on through the NWA or
Either or.
WWF? I think there was just a lot of egos back in those days. There was probably a lot of testosterone flowing around through the locker rooms.
Could be.
So yeah, there was a lot of egos back in the days, and I don't really recall that any one person was treating me any differently or any better. But you get a guy like Jimmy Valiant, who's just a sweetheart to everybody. A quick story about Jimmy. I had just gotten through, I think, working with Manny and Rick Rude. Rick Rude could be a little careless at times. But when I had to work again on TV, and I was working against the Boogie Woogie Man. He came up to me and said, "Hey kid, I saw your last match. I promise you, no potatoes. The only potatoes I'm going to throw in this particular match is sweet potatoes." So
very nice.
Yeah.
Like that.
So that when you work with Boogie, you were going to get taken care of.
Very nice.
How about you, Tommy?
I had personally, no one ever treated me that way, but to David's point, there were a lot of egos, and those guys, some of them believed their gimmicks, and if anybody was a threat to their gimmick or their ego, they just kind of went out of their way to cause some stress. But I never did. I think that to Dave's point, to Arn and some other guys, the best compliment we ever got as underneath talent, even though we never made it, was you're a good hand. They trusted us.
Right.
I've been a first match on television for The Undertaker, for Arn and Tully when they went to WWF. And it just, to me, it speaks volumes that they trusted me that much, because Arn and Tully came up to us and said, look, we got you guys in the first match. We're so glad it's our first match debuting in the WWF, because there's so many tag teams up here, the Rougeaus and all the others. And he said, we trust you guys. Thank you. We're going to mow you down. I said, yes, sir. Let's do it. And he said, well, I appreciate it. And we went out there, and, they threw us around and beat us up. But the whole point was to make them look like superstars, and they were very happy.
Guys, I have a fan out there we call the First Lady of Wrestling, Maria Davis.
Maria.
She'd like to know, who was your favorite wrestlers to work with?
Oh, wow. I would say, and a lot of these are not even on video, because they were all done. I remember back in the day, when Rob Russen and Sal Corrente were booking Sydney, Australia. We were there for 3 weeks. I probably had the best match of my career over there with Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. I was the champion of the IWA over there, and Paul and I probably should have quit then, because that was probably the best match of my career. He was great to work with. I would say again, rock and roll, Tully and Arn. They the Midnight Express. I enjoyed working with Dennis and with Bobby Cornette out on the outside. Big Bossman, Big Bubba Rogers. But then again, I also liked working with a guy like Brad Armstrong, who's no longer with us anymore, and who actually went out there and wrestled and had a match. That's the kind of guys that I enjoyed working with.
Tommy?
Man, I'm the same way. I mean, every one of them, we had such a good rapport. We all had great matches. But to me, my favorites in the WWF was Kurt Hennig. He always made me look like a champion out there. And Barry Windham and WCW, he was first class. I mean, we trusted each other, and he'd give me stuff that I probably wouldn't give most guys at my level. So, but everybody had respect, because they knew we weren't going to hurt them, and we'd make them look good, and they trusted we did things with them. So we're just blessed.
Tommy, is it fair?
One thing I will say, guys. One thing I will say about I had a match on TV in the WWF with Ted DiBiase and Virgil on the outside. Ted and I were going over the match in the back, and he asked me if I could take a standing suplex. And I looked at him and I said, "Are you joking or what?" I said, "Are you kidding me?" He says, "No, man." He said, I don't know who you are." He said, you wouldn't believe the guys that I run into up here that tell me they can do something and they can't. And he said, who trained you? And I said, Nelson Royal and Gene Anderson. He said, oh, okay, kid, you're all right. No problem. I'm sorry.
When Nelson and Gene trained you and you guys were traveling, whether to go to WCW or the WWE, did they get a piece of your action, or did they get paid for setting you up like separately?
Yeah, I think Tommy, I think they probably got a fee from the office, and I think maybe we had to give Gene or Nelson, a little small cut of our pay, right?
10% when we went to New York. When we first, I think the office in NWA was paying them because they created this school and there was a new talent revenue stream. Young talent coming in. They guaranteed these guys. When we went to WWF, he said, I made the bookings, so we were going to pay 10%. We're like, all right, we're young, we're going to be WWF. But Lanny Poffo got hurt, and they had to take him. He was out for a while, and they put me in his place. And they asked me if I would do that when we were on a television tape. And so I assumed that I created that. They approached me, so that's my money. When I went back to Mooresville, Nelson's like, I get 10% of all that. It was like 2 weeks straight of house shows. And you talk about an exponential increase in income. I was like, I'm not giving you 10% of nothing. He goes, I got you in the door. And I sat down and reconciled with him. I said, you're right. Without you, I wouldn't have been there. But that's just how business works. But yeah, that catapulted me higher up in the WWF. But going back to NWA, Dave mentioned Jim Cornette. He put me on the radar, man. I was just some goofball, but he came up with that goofy song, Tommy Angel. And every time he'd wear me out with that tennis racket, but every arena I went to after that, everybody sang that song. So I would give him 10% of all my money because he gave me street cred.
You got
1 second.
Yeah,
Tommy, you clearly hit the gas, right? I mean, I think you mentioned it, and you had a body, you were like a brick shithouse, if I could say it. Yeah.
There we go. Wait, he's still hitting the gas.
You ain't kidding.
That? Wait a second.
So I guess that kind of answers the question.
He's got gas. He's not hitting gas.
What are your thoughts on human growth hormones in general?
Well, for us, I mean, that was the joke back in the day. We could afford the steroids, the synthetic drugs to enhance your body, and you would not get into business without them. Period. There you go. That's some equipoise and Winstrol V right there.
His muscles have muscles.
But the human growth hormone is actually safer than synthetic because it's derived from human cadavers, and it's undetectable. At least back then it wasn't. So, but it costs exponentially more than we could ever afford. But it's safer for your body. It's still not good to do it long term, but when I was in the wrestling business, it made me realize that all sports are using it. I know how to recognize it because I know what it does to your body. And people say, oh, I'm not using them. Like, you're a liar.
As you guys are telling us, your favorite matches and all the guys you worked with, I'm hearing all these incredible legends. But what is kind of sad is a lot of these guys you're mentioning are gone. Do you feel fortunate or surprised that you were able to avoid the traps that some of these traps take a lot of your friends out? I mean, any thoughts on that?
Dave. Yeah, I only stayed in the business for 8 years. I retired at 31. 1994, my father committed suicide. Me and him were never close. And we finally got close at 93, and he always was against it. But all the guys that had died in the business, though, the mentality is, oh, it's not going to happen to me. And you'd be like, you're on the road, and all of a sudden, so-and-so's not there. Like, what happened? Oh, he's dead. He passed out. He passed away in a hotel room. You're like, it started weighing on my heart. I'm like, dude, what are you doing with your lives? You're making all this money, and you're caught up in all the drugs, sex, and all that stuff. And it just, and when my father passed away, that's when I decided to get out. I don't want to be a statistic. So at 31, I reinvented myself, and I got into the radio business. I got into broadcasting like you fellas.
There you go.
Nice.
Dave, how about you?
Yeah, same here. I think a couple of I mentioned the Australia tour a few minutes ago that Sal and Rob Russen took me on. I became very close with James Harris, who you guys probably remember as Kamala. He and I were extremely close, contacted each other on a very regular basis. when he got the diabetes and things of that sort, and lost his legs, and it just crushed me. That relationship crushed me. I remember a guy like Big Bossman, Ray Traylor. His death crushed me extremely hard. So yeah, there were quite a few guys around me at the time. Another guy that was in camp with us, a guy named Jammin' Mitch Snow, who worked up in the AWA a little bit early on. He committed suicide, after he got out of the wrestling business. So, Tommy and I were just very fortunate, very blessed that we had something else to do besides wrestling. As Tommy said, we reinvented ourselves and tried something else. But it's still hard today. I'm thankful that I've got the relationships now that I have. With some of the guys, like a Stan Hansen, like Tommy, Rick Steamboat, Sal, Gene Ligon, Gary Royal. Those are the guys that I keep in touch with on a very regular basis. So it's, I'm very fortunate and blessed to still have those relationships.
All right, guys, I don't know if I'm being set up here, so I'm going to ask you a question, and it's to both of you. Referee Phil says, please ask Tommy and David both, is there any truth to the rumor of Trent Knight possibly beating Ric Flair for the NWA title in 1988? I have no idea what this is about, but
what is this?
Trent Knight was that guy was a character. He's in the construction business, and he was the guy that was so full of himself. He'd walk into a bar, all of us together, and he'd see two girls, and he had this gruff. He'd always have dip in his mouth. Which one of you chicks is digging me the most?
Oh boy! Oh boy!
And he's about a buck 90, soaking wet. So there's no way he'd beat Ric Flair.
All right.
To death, though.
How about Bert Gagne? Any shot?
And even to this day, when I see the Nasty Boys, Trent probably doesn't. I remember Trent's last match in Spartanburg. He came off South Carolina. He came off the top rope, and when he landed, he had a compound fracture, and I don't remember who he was working with, but I think that's the last match that he ever had. And to this day, whenever I run into the Nasty Boys, that's one of the first things they say is, "Where's Trent Knight?" Because they knew what kind of a character he was. And if I'm not mistaken, Trent may have been there that night when that whole thing went down between Shamrock and the Nasty Boys over at the hotel.
Oh, really?
Or in the bar over there at Plum Crazy. I think Trent may have been there that night.
Hey, David, you spoke about your relationship with James Harris. I want to kind of bring it back there.
Yeah.
For the fans, we all heard the stories about James feeling that he was ripped off during his time when he was a main event with Hogan. And, we had Lonnie Poffo, God rest his soul, on here, and he spoke about it. What was your feelings for James? Did you think James was right in what he was saying, or did you just think that...
No, I believe, if I may be on the fence about somebody, James, I'm not on the fence about whatsoever. If he told me that story many, many times, if James said it, I believe it.
Fair enough. How about Japan, guys?
I'd like to say, I hope that someday, I mentioned Stan Hansen a minute ago.
Yeah.
Real quick about that. Stan talks about it in his book. But when we went to Japan, Baba was looking for some talent over in for All Japan, and I was, Sal Corrente had booked a tour over to Bermuda. I was sitting on the beach with the Junkyard Dog, and he said, "Hey kid, I loved your work. Have you ever thought about going to Japan?" I said, "Dog, I don't know how to get over there." He said, "You call Stan Hansen, send him some pictures and a tape, and you tell him that I recommended you." Well, 4 or 5 months went by. Stan finally called me and said, "Hey, look, I need some guys to go to Japan. Have you got a couple other guys you can bring along with you or at another time?" So naturally, I mentioned Tommy and another guy named Ricky Nelson, and and even to this day, I'm so very blessed, with the relationship that I have with Stan Hansen. I talk to Stan at least once a week, probably text 2 or 3 times a week, and going to be spending some time with him, November up at a little match. He's going to, not a match, but a signing he's going to be doing. Luckily through work, I was coming back from the West Coast about 2 or 3 months ago. Was able to stop through over in Grand Junction, Colorado, and spend a few days with him and his wife. So very, very blessed and very thankful that I still have a relationship with Stan.
How did you guys find Japan when you got there? Culture shock? Was it an easy adjustment? I mean, more physical? What do you say?
Oh, definitely more physical. Oh my God! I mean, I earned every bit of that money that I fought tooth and nail. I'll let Tommy tell his story, but I know that I fought tooth and nail over there.
Yeah. Then when Nelson said, "Forget about all them muscles. Start doing squats and doing all your cardio training because them matches over there, 30, 40 minutes long, and those guys were for real." And you better be ready to go. I had a tag with Danny Spivey. We did a lot of stuff with the Fantastics against Dr. Death, Steve Williams, and Terry Gordy. But, man, I'll tell you, what a blessing that was. It was culture shock because we didn't speak anything, but the guys led us around, took us to restaurants, and showed us, how to order, what to eat. Took us to the Playboy Club, and,
It sounds like you guys were both, glad you had the experience, but were you happy to come back home?
I know that I was at that particular time. I had been there already. I was over there for the Champion Carnival Tour in '92, and I know that Stan came up to me and said, "Hey, look, can you stay an extra 3 or 4 days, and they'll take care of you? They got a couple of shows that that they want you to stay for. Can you do it?" I said, "I'll stay as long as you want me to." And I know on that tour, like Tommy said, Johnny Ace, and who I knew from back here, and Stan. And Abdullah, they took me out to eat with a lot of the sponsors over there in Japan. So I really didn't even have to spend a lot of my own money. I had enough money when I came back home to put my first down payment on my home. So I was extremely happy with that.
Wow.
Yeah, that was the biggest payday we ever seen.
Yeah,
wow.
Absolutely.
Nice.
So, look, I'm going to assume maybe you guys got married at the time, whatever. So we're going to say pre-marriage days or pre-relationship days. What were the ring rats like with you guys traveling around? Was it out of control?
Yeah, I mean, there was never a shortage. I mean, if you, I remember, I remember her. I say I can still see her face, but there was one rat, who always came around to the shows, and they called her Old Reliable.
Old Reliable? That's Tommy Henrik from the '40s Yankees. What do you mean, Old Reliable? Well, actually, I know what you mean. Never mind.
I never had the privilege, but when Tommy and I,
this is great.
Yeah, we there was never a shortage. Whether we went to the strip bars or whether we went to Plum Crazy or Whisperers or some of the other well-known clubs in Charlotte. There was never a shortage of girls.
So well, which one of you girls is into me first?
Back to Old Reliable. Was she good looking?
No.
She was reliable.
She was just reliable.
Just leave it at that. She was reliable.
So she had a foot on her face.
That's rough.
Yeah.
Wow. Dig them toes.
The expression was, it's like shooting fish in a barrel.
Nice.
That's unbelievable.
I had one that I actually had to get a restraining order because she followed me. She figured out where I lived. This one chick did. And I had to call the police and I had to keep her away. One day I came off the road and she was sitting on my front porch. I'm like, what in the world?
What'd you name her? Old Deniable? I mean, what are we talking here? Oh my God. What is she doing on your porch?
Her face could stop a clock.
Oh my God.
All right, so but not you guys. But was there ever a case where one of the other wrestlers fell in love with a ring rat?
Oh, yeah.
Do you have a story?
Oh, gosh, yeah. Who's that chick that was the valet for, she went for, she ended up marrying Dustin Rose, but she was.
Oh, that's Terry Runnels.
Passed around by all the top guys in Atlanta.
You New Jack.
Yeah, she was the makeup artist down at WTBS when we were down there.
What was her nickname? Old Reliable?
I don't really remember. But that's one case that I can think of.
She was that chick that she was Mike Rotundo had her. She was like the secretary. She dressed up in a business suit.
Right.
Yeah. I remember coming out of the shower one time down at WTBS. I was walking this way. Kevin Sullivan was coming this way. Missy Hyatt was sitting down at the other end of the hallway. As I was walking by, Kevin yanks off my towel and drops it on the floor. And Missy, and I'm just standing there, butt naked, and Missy just down there at the end of the hall. And I remember somebody, hollering at me, "Hey, brother, don't expose the business."
That's great.
Ricky Morton also said, "Call the police. There's a thief in here." And everybody's looking around. He goes, "Why?" He goes, "Somebody stole that man's dick."
Oh,
Boom.
boy.
Ricky Morton would be going, thief, 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 and we're all looking around at our stuff. He said, somebody stole that man's pecker over here.
All right, well, let me ask you this question. So when Morton and Gibson were in here, Morton's telling us that Gibson had the size of like an anaconda,
it's
right?
Like a jump rope.
Is that
What's
true?
Going on?
That's a shoot. That's a shoot, man. They called him like the human tripod.
Wow. The third leg.
And look, I'll tell you another guy that they talked about a lot was, God rest his soul, is Rocky King.
Rocky King.
Wow.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So part of them got in the room before the rest of them. Very interesting.
Absolutely.
You mentioned Missy Hyatt. How was Missy Hyatt? Was she cool around the locker room?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, the girls, the valets, they all had, separate locker rooms and separate areas where they dressed and where we dressed. They were always extremely cool. Nicola Roberts, who is still a very good friend of mine, she was always very cool. Still is to this day. We message each other occasionally here and there. But she was always extremely cool. Matter of fact, she was part of my first wrestling match that I ever had when I was tagging with I think Lawrence Stevens against Midnight's Bobby and Dennis. With Corrente was over at the table with Shivani. Baby Doll was down here at the corner, and Big Bubba Rogers was right beside her.
Wow. All right, guys, weigh in. What's the difference between Vince McMahon and Jim Crockett?
Oh, Tommy?
Well, back then, the NWA and that era, we were as a blessing. It was all, we kind of Forrest Gumped our way into the business. It was at the height it ever was. I don't think it's ever been back. It was because of the culture, the booking. Dusty Rhodes had the mind to create all this hype. But Vince McMahon was the showman, the Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey Circus, big time. So, there's each had its own, but they created the first WrestleMania. Going into that, I remember just because we were on the payroll, we got a check with a portion of that. We called down. I was like, we got a check for what? We weren't even there. They're like, no, Miss McMahon wanted to thank everybody in the company because without everybody, this wouldn't have happened. So there's good from both. But if you're looking back now, you can see why the NWA turned into a dumpster fire, and currently the WWE is kind of in a similar situation.
Dave?
And I think from kind of what Tommy just said, the fact that, just the marketing. I don't think Jim Crockett really knew how to market properly. He started getting into the shirts and, wrestling cards and things like that. But Vince, just took it to a whole different level. The operation behind the scenes, which most people never see, you just can't believe how professionally, that outfit is run.
Now we know why he never sleeps, Mr. McMahon. We always hear the
There
stories.
you go.
He never sleeps. He's always looking to improve it and grow it and expand it.
Absolutely.
So obviously you guys have been everywhere. How about some Puerto Rico stories? Anything about Puerto Rico you could tell us? You guys were there or no?
I never made it to Puerto Rico. I just always heard, from some of the other guys how rough it was down there as far as, the fans. I mean, I know, you talked about Sal Corrente a few minutes ago. I'm sure he's got some Puerto Rico stories. I know that, with the death of Brody over there, I know that Stan Hansen still, even to this day, he still, never forgets when Brody was killed. And I know he's still extremely hurt. I don't think Stan will ever get over that.
Tommy, any
I
thoughts
never
on
made it to
Puerto Rico
either.
Tom?
No, I never went there, but I did Dominican Republic in '94. That was my last matches was that week, and I was working Hacksaw Duggan that week, and the country was under martial law back then, which means that the military's everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I just remember going down there, and my heart wasn't in it. I just found out my father had passed away, but it was just it's a different culture down there. But those fans down there are rabid, but nothing like Puerto Rico. We have plenty of friends that did wrestle down there and told us the stories, and it was an experience you never forget. I wish I would have, but Dominican Republic is the furthest south I've ever went.
Okay.
When you look back at your pro wrestling careers, Is there any regrets?
No, I don't think so. I think I can probably speak for Tommy as well because, even though we didn't make the millions of dollars like a lot of the guys did, we made some good income, for a while and got to see a lot of places that we never would have had an opportunity to see, Japan, Australia, Bermuda, and just the relationships. I mean, you can't put a price on that. So no, I mean, do I ache every morning I wake up? Absolutely. But it's the life I chose, and I would do it all over again.
Well, if I could speak for the Pharaoh as a wrestling fan, we want to thank you for what you've done for the industry. I mean, without guys like yourselves, the sport just wouldn't have been the same.
Stars can't be made.
Yeah.
Stars can't be made without their role. It's imperative.
Unbelievable.
Again, I don't think, you see a lot of, and I don't follow a lot of the wrestling today, but I see a lot of the comments some of the younger generation makes about, this guy's a job guy, that guy's a job guy, but if you ask a good hand about an underneath guy or an enhancement talent, you just don't really have an idea how they, like a George South, who put guys over all his life. Mm-hmm. You just don't know how critical they are to that match because you've got a top guy out there who's trying to make money, right? And you just don't have an idea because if they go out there and you've got an underneath guy who's just flopping around like a dead fish, there's no contest to that. So a good enhancement talent like a Barry Horowitz back in the day, like an Iron Mike Sharp. Those are the guys that I remember. You can't put a price on what they meant to the business.
Agreed. Here's one thing I don't agree on. How come they didn't push the Thunderfoot's father?
Well, that's a great question. What I will say is Joel Deaton, Joel Deaton did a great job. Dusty came up with that gimmick for Joel Deaton and Gene Ligon. I don't know what happened to Joel after why he couldn't, be one of the Thunderfoots, but they invited me in to be one of the Thunderfoots in 1991. I don't know. Gene and I, Gene and I were a great team together. We had great synergy together. We got great heat together. There were quite a few times that I told Gene that I'm not sure we're going to make it out of here alive tonight if one of us doesn't get cut or shot. That's the kind of heat we were able to draw back in the day. But I don't think now they're looking for for real heat anymore. I don't think they could draw heat now if you brought a flamethrower in there.
Agreed.
All right, guys. Gonna hit you with something called the Pharaoh's final question.
Uh-oh.
I don't know what he's going to ask you. Lately, It's been about the New York Jets, so I don't know if it's going to be a Jet question.
They're in the Hall of Fame game tonight. Who's winning right now?
Who is? Tell me. I don't have a TV.
I'm tuning into you guys. You tell me.
Oh, my God. Well, I heard the Jets were up like 13-0, but that was a while ago. And with the Jets, that could be reversed in a nanosecond. So who really knows? Plus, Aaron's not playing, so.
Jets. Jets.
This is great.
Please, no Super Bowl talk.
No.
I'm guessing you're the Giants, and he's the
No,
Jets.
I'm a huge Jet fan.
We're both Jets.
But I'm so scarred, I don't even want to talk about it.
He has them not even making the playoffs this year. I can't even work with this guy. It's out of control.
Hey,
Aaron Rodgers is here. We're going to miss the playoffs.
Aaron Rodgers. What do you guys think about Aaron?
I'm thrilled. How could I not be thrilled? I've been watching garbage outside of... Look, I saw Joe Namath when I was a little boy, and basically ever since then, I've been waiting.
Right.
One guy after another. They suck. It's half a century. I've lost my mind. You see what he started?
Happen.
You see what you started?
I'm gonna watch the first game with Old Reliable.
Wait, as long as Old Deniable's not out in the backyard, because she was a problem.
Right, Pharaoh's final question.
All right, let's hit it. Okay, guys.
Make it a good one.
I think this is a good one.
Jets are winning 16-14.
Oh, jeez.
Wow.
They were up 13-0. This is typical. Okay. You guys have a shot. We're gonna play What If, like your favorite Marvel comic, What If. You guys have a shot. Promoter comes to you, says, you're in the main event tonight. Okay? Each one of you wants you to answer this. You're
For
in
a
the main
day or
event
back then?
tonight. The promoter comes to each one of you, says you're in the main event. Maybe you're in one town, Tommy's in the other, whatever. I want you to name for me your dream opponent that you never got to work with for the main event. How about you, Dave? What do you say?
That's a great question. Probably I would have to say, probably a couple of guys. I
only get
never
one.
really.
You only got one.
I never really got to have Tommy.
You only get one.
Tommy's pointing out you only got one. Make it
Only
count.
got one. Okay.
Only got one.
I probably would say I probably would like to have a match with Dusty Rhodes.
Nice.
Wow.
Nice. Why? For many reasons, I'm sure, but why? Why for
Yeah,
you?
I think Dusty was just so over at the time down there in the Carolinas. I was fortunate enough in my last match. Sal Corrente set it up where I could, go out and I could take the one bionic elbow from him, and I sold that. I did a run in with him and Terry Funk. But as far as having a match, I probably would say Dusty Rhodes. He was just you just can't imagine how over he was down here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. How about you, Tommy? Who's your dream guy? You got one guy to pick from for a main event that you haven't worked with.
Well, I did a TV match with Flair, and that's not really counting as working with because it was chops and I was out. But I would like to do a main event with him, like Steamboat, go 40 minutes because, or Steamboat, either one. I'm going two. I just got chastised for.
Yeah, wait a minute. Pick one. You got one.
Okay, Flair because he's a heel, and because what intrigued me is when Ricky Steamboat talked about working that main event with Flair. He said he didn't know the finish. Well, before they started the match, he didn't know it till about the last minute. That's how Flair worked, and he had to be engaged to that match the whole time. Good versus evil. That's a mental challenge that I would love to have, and I'm trying to understand the makeup of this guy and his heel mentality, because to be able to go up into a match and say, all right, let's go 60 minutes and not know the finish.
Wow.
And to keep the crowd engaged that whole time.
That's pretty incredible.
I'm going to ask you both to speak for Steamboat here.
Yeah.
If I was to say, which match did Steamboat find closer to his heart? WrestleMania 3 against Randy Savage, or the trilogy Chi-Town Rumble with Flair?
That's a great question. And I just had lunch with Ricky, back at the end of February for his birthday up in Knoxville, Tennessee, where he's living now. He's very fond of both matches, but if I had to pick one, I probably would say his match with Flair.
Not surprised. He's picking between bacon and eggs either way. He
That's
wins
what I-
either way.
I want to thank Sal Corrente for introducing me to both you gentlemen. We'd
Yeah,
love to have
that's-
you come back on. I know there's a million
Love
more
to.
stories. Huge fans of both of you guys. I want to thank you for taking the time to join us on Monte and the Pharaoh.
Thank you, guys.
And thank you again for what you've done for the wrestling industry. I can't say it enough times. Thank you.
We appreciate it. Go Jets!
Yeah, there you go. Hey, can we get a JETS? You ready? Come on. Here we go.
Jets, Jets, Jets.
JETS. Mike, where's your chance? Anyway,
Thank you,
fellas.
guys.
You guys
All
were
right,
great.
guys,
Thank
have
you.
us back. We'd love to come
Thank
back.
you. Absolutely. Well, they were fantastic.
The unsung heroes that made the
We
stars.
got a Jets fan. You didn't tell me he's a big Jets fan. That's fantastic. Who knew?
I feel bad for him.
I feel bad for us. We're Jets fans.
No, you understand something.
What?
Tommy, like many of us Jet fans,
Yeah.
are very excited for what could happen this season.
You're not excited.
No, I am.
You don't have them making the playoffs. How
Because
excited
my
could
partner
you be? I didn't say anything.
Continues
I have
to
not
push the
said
Jets. And we know what happens with this.
What? I'm not responsible for 50
You-
years of
you- you
sucking.
are.
No, I'm not. You're out of your mind. Remember when
Will
we
you
were little
take
kids?
responsibility for this season?
Remember we were little
Will
kids,
you
we
take-
didn't know each other, and I told you not to trade John Riggins, and you traded him anyway? Don't you remember that?
I'm going to ask you this question. I
Go
want to be serious.
ahead,
Will
go
you
ahead.
take responsibility for this season if it does not go the right
No,
way?
I have
And if it
nothing
goes
to-
the right way, give you responsibility.
No, I have nothing to do with it. I'm just a schnook fan. I've got nothing to do with it. I have nothing to do with it, Mike.
think I do notice
It's
you will
really
not put
insane that
yourself
you
on the
think I
line.
have something to do with it. You need help.
Well, I will tell you that
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
sat here and you were sitting on that table.
Yeah.
And you were saying, Stanley Cup, Stanley Cup. Rangers winning this, and I was like, "What are you talking about?" Oh,
Was
they
he
got the
singing
great,
it
and you were
like
like,
that?
"Oh, we're going, dude. We're going to start. It's a guarantee. We're there."
Well, just because they took a big fat dump and fired the coach has got nothing to do with my optimism. What is your problem? And where were you in 1994 when I knew Messier was going to win the Stanley Cup?
I wasn't around.
You were nowhere to
I
be
could never
found.
confirm
You're like,
or
oh,
deny.
Farrell sounds
I
right.
cannot-
I'm going the other way.
Confirm or deny.
That's
I do
rough,
remember.
man.
I do remember the night though, that I believe it was WrestleMania.
You
6.
love making me look bad.
It was WrestleMania 6.
You can keep trying.
And
It ain't
you
going to
said,
work, but go ahead.
I guarantee Hulk Hogan's winning this main event.
You weren't even around. First of all, you're a liar. You were still in the effing army. You're just getting out of it. You're a liar. And I was the only idiot in the room rooting for Hogan while they all cheered Warrior. And I said, he's not the future of the business. Hogan still is.
I once had
so I was right.
I once
right,
had
right.
$5,000 and I called Pharaoh.
what
I
did you
said,
do?
"Who's
He's
winning?
lying.
Tyson or Buster Douglas?"
You've never had $5,000.
Put it all down on Tyson.
on
you said.
Buster Douglas.
No, you said put it all on Tyson.
Dude, that was a horror. You know what's funny? Even though you're lying through your teeth, I remember watching that fight live, just horrified. I'm like, Mike,
Dude,
what
I was
is wrong?
jumping up and down. I was going crazy, dude.
Why?
I was.
You were
I
glad
hated-
Tyson
I
was
hated
getting
him.
beaten
Hated
up?
Tyson. Hated him.
Did you really?
Oh,
so
my God.
Holyfield's like a hero to you.
Oh well, you got to understand.
But he's not headbutting Mike
No,
repeatedly.
you got to understand. I sat there like became a huge Trevor Burbick fan.
What
Got
a
crushed.
bum.
Who was the dude from Canada? He was huge. God, I can't remember his name. I'll remember.
Razor
next-
Ruddock?
Yes, man, you're great.
Tyson busted
But
his.
dude, I was like,
those two
Razor
fights, by the way.
Ruddock,
By the way,
Razor-
those two fights were fantastic.
They were.
Tyson and Ruddock.
But I
he was like a foot taller than
I
Tyson.
know, and I was like, no one's ever gonna beat this
What
guy.
did you think of Riddick Bowe? You must have liked him.
Oh, I loved Riddick
Big
Bowe.
dude.
But I will tell you that when Douglas shocked the world,
Oh, it was unbelievable.
Oh my God!
Yeah, but nobody knew his father had just passed. Tyson was a dead man.
No, Tyson, we
Your
all know the
father
story.
just
Tyson wasn't even
passed.
training. It
I
was
know.
like,
What was that all about?
But I will tell you this: for the longest time, I kept
Yeah.
saying, "Wait till Holyfield comes to heavyweight," because he was like a
Oh,
light heavyweight.
Holyfield was a machine.
And I just, you
know
just
what?
knew
Holyfield-
that was the guy who had Tyson's
Holyfield's almost
number.
like the Bob Backlund, Kurt Angle
Yes.
of boxers.
Yes,
The guy was a
you're right.
machine. He'd point you to death.
You just knew he was going
break
to do it.
you down and take you out.
Talking about our guests.
Yeah, go ahead.
Two incredible guests. I want to again
Fantastic.
thank Sal Corrente.
Dude, I told you, man. I had a feeling that they were going to be good.
They're
You know?
unbelievable stories.
Fantastic.
Both really great guys.
And it builds up my appreciation even further for the talent enhancement. I hate all these
Sure.
fancy terms. The guys who were a good hand. The guys who work so hard to make other guys stars.
Listen, I've got fond,
just grows in respect
I have
over the
fonder
years.
memories of Johnny Rods, Jim,
Jose Estrada.
Rick McGraw,
Rick McGraw. I don't consider him a
the
full
Mulkey
jobber, though, but
brothers.
okay.
You know, like
Yes.
I remember
Dude, Steve King punching
King,
away at the gut,
Big Bob
getting
Bradley.
nowhere.
Hey,
Bob
big,
Bradley.
Big Ron Shaw.
Big Run Show was great.
You know what I mean?
He's
I mean,
great. That's a great job. He was
I remember
fantastic.
some of those matches more
Yes.
than I remember. Dude,
Absolutely.
all right, we're gonna get out of here, Abe. I'm sorry, but here's
Yeah,
the
he's
thing.
getting ready to
What
throw something
match
at us. Is that
do
a
you-
pizza pie?
What
the hell
match
is
do you remember the most from back then? An enhancement match.
from talent enhancement?
Yeah, the one that sticks. I want to see if you got that memory that sticks. Because I know when
Pete
I say
Doherty.
it, you're gonna knew it. George
The
Steele.
arm. He
That-
ripped
I
his
knew it!
arm off.
That
I mean,
was
the
the
thing
guy
was hanging the other way. Alexa
We
Bliss-
were screaming.
Alexa Bliss did it years later.
You and I
wasn't it?
saw it together.
I
We
couldn't
were
believe it. I
screaming.
think that's when both of our hair started falling
I know,
out.
you're
It started
right,
early.
you're
I was
right.
like, what the fuck? Oh,
See?
my God.
I knew it. We got
what
intuitive,
used to be
dude.
called as the Willies
Yeah,
watching that.
But
That
I
was
knew
brutal.
that would be the one.
That was brutal.
We were
And he
like-
kept beating on him. He was,
And he
an
was
a-
kicking
He was
it.
an animal.
That was
Oh.
incredible.
Yeah, oh, it was. It was. That was some great stuff. You know what was else? What else was great? The talent enhancement. Boy, did they serve a purpose in that Cobra Clutch challenge.
Oh,
Because
my
it
God,
started with the talent
Yes.
enhancement, and then it would get a little higher on the card.
Yeah.
The next one would be Johnny Rods.
Oh, yeah.
We went from Steve King to Johnny Rods. Okay, now we've got Rick McGraw. Oh, he's almost out of it, but he's not. And then finally, Patterson. It's
Yeah.
the way they built that. That was
Dude, at the
brilliant.
house shows, they always had them. They
Yes.
always had them.
They were
Rick
all over them.
Martel,
Dude,
Tony
The
Gurria.
talent enhancement did more traveling than the stars.
Dude,
they were like
I am
everywhere.
telling you that WWE has not missed a lot recently.
Right.
They missed with Lacey Evans. They just missed it. They could have just went that
They
route,
should have.
dude.
That would have been great.
It would have been great.
And you could
Even
use-
you, who's not the hugest women's fan,
No, the Cobra Clutch Challenge.
you would have
been
tuned in
great.
for that,
right?
no matter what.
And somewhere in there had to be a future female talented enhancement, James Ellsworth. Have them come out and
Yeah,
you
right.
might find a personality in them there hills.
Exactly.
You know what I
I
mean?
agree.
James Ellsworth, by the way, that's an amazing career when you think about it. That guy came in as talent enhancement.
Well, I think think about
You
these
know?
guys, right? I mean, how many people are going to say, "Look, I got my hair cut off by Brutus
It's
Beefcake"?
pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
You know, don't get any ideas.
No, but I'm just saying, like, they were Thunderfoot. Those guys were cool, dude.
Right.
I remember.
Yeah, what's with your Thunderfoot? I saw it on there. I'm like, Mike with the Thunderfoot.
Dude,
Didn't
Ding
realize you
Dongs,
were so
Thunderfoot.
The Ding Dogs.
What do you call it? The
The Ding Dogs.
the
What a
guys we
name
had
for a
on from
team.
Mexico, the
Conquistadors.
Conquistadors. Yeah. I mean, those were cool. That was cool shit, dude.
Yeah, it was good stuff, man. That was a great interview. I hope you guys liked it.
It
That was
could have
fantastic.
went long.
Absolutely.
Okay, don't forget. Tuesday, watch along. Marty Jannetty Live. You've got Monty, you've got the Pharaoh, you've got the host of
Monty.
ESO Creative and the after show,
Yes.
Bruce, and you've got one half of our new show that joined the network, the Dan and Benny. Benny will be there. We'll be commenting
Benny.
during the show.
Very cool.
And maybe, just maybe,
There
might be a surprise running. And I'm not promising anything.
Surprise running?
Yeah, I'm not promising anything.
I don't want my sister running in and jumping me. I'm
It's not
into
your
it.
sister.
Okay, that's good.
You got to call her first. By the
I
way,
ain't
call
calling her. I got
your
a
sister.
few things to call her, but I'm not.
Wednesday, the
Yeah.
great Todd Gordon special show on
God is
Wednesday.
God.
Thursday, the return of Sal Corrente.
Very nice.
The Bruno book.
Very
Sal
nice.
was a booker. Sal was the big cheese.
He's
Dude,
all
there's
over the
so many.
place.
The thing that doesn't drive me crazy, I find so amazing.
Fascinating.
Is these people have life in wrestling that we never heard of.
Never heard of.
And they're a big star. Look, Mitch Seinfeld was in here. Same
Absolutely.
thing.
Mitch can tell stories for
And
hours.
then we've got, talk about great, Barry Horowitz returns.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Dude, we're lined up. We're cooking. We love you guys. Thank you so much, Pharaoh.
You've been watching Monte and the Pharaoh. And until next time, thank you for letting us come into your living rooms. Later.